On this episode of Formula World, Hamilton is unbeatable, Alonso best in the world, and much more. As always, you can find timestamps for all these stories in the description or as a pinned comment. First up on Formula World, Ricciardo, most reliable driver in F1. Mark Webber has dished out some rather big compliments to his fellow countryman Daniel Ricciardo when he recently labelled him as the most reliable driver in F1 due to his consistent performances on race day. Here's what Webber had to say. Daniel is just so solid on Sunday afternoons. He's the most reliable driver in F1 in that you know what he's going to deliver week in, week out. We all expected such great things from Red Bull this year, but they came out the box very poorly, yet he's always got the most out of what they've given him, and it's hard to see how he could have done much better. Hamilton is unbeatable. Current world champion and Hamilton's former teammate, Nico Rosberg, has stayed away from much of the F1 action this year, but admits he is still following the sport he loves. Rosberg recently gave credit to his former rival, saying there are days when nobody can beat him, and that he thinks Mercedes will edge out Ferrari. Lewis is unbeatable on good days, but he also has a few more difficult weekends for various reasons. I have giant respect for Ferrari, who were in no man's land last year. The fact that they now lead is very, very impressive, but I still believe that although it's still exciting, Mercedes will win in the end because they have the best car. Alonso, best in the world. Mark Webber has more kind words, this time for two-time world champion Fernando Alonso. Webber admits that Alonso's move to McLaren has been a major letdown, but is quick to give praise to the Spaniard, stating that he's probably the best driver in the world. It's been a big shame for Formula 1, a big shame for Honda, a big shame for McLaren. They loaded their guns up and got Fernando back there waiting for the engine to fire, but it hasn't happened. He's been biting his tongue for the last 24 months. He can't drive the thing any harder. His stock is still incredible, and on Sundays he's probably the best in the world. That's the frustrating bit. Verstappen, stronger than Scheckter. 1979 World Drivers' Champion Jody Scheckter has spoken recently about how the current drivers in F1 compare to himself, and two names came to his mind, Verstappen and Hamilton. Scheckter thinks he sees a bit of himself in Verstappen. Both got their start young. Scheckter was only 22 when he made his debut. Here's what Scheckter had to say. Verstappen reminds me of myself in the beginning, although he is perhaps stronger than I was. I'd also like to say that I was like Hamilton, but I had accidents that he never had. Raikkonen, one season at a time. The news of Kimi Raikkonen signing a one-year extension for Ferrari was mostly expected amongst the racing community, and according to Kimi, the discussions didn't take long before both sides came to an agreement. We started discussing it at a late stage and quickly agreed. It did not take long to think about it. I would not have signed it if I wasn't enjoying it and I didn't have a good cooperation with the team and the people. At this point, it's good to take one season at a time. It does not matter one way or another if there is another contract or not. I always try my best. Bottas, more consistent than Hamilton. Nico Rosberg believes that on his day, Hamilton can't be beaten, but believes over the course of a season that his teammate Valtteri Bottas may have the edge. Here's what Nico had to say. Please do not forget about Valtteri Bottas. He really has a chance as he is fast and perhaps a little bit more consistent than Lewis. Lewis is a bit more inconsistent in the head, as it's important how he arrives at the racetrack. Is he at 100% or only 95%? Engine cost, lowest ever. With constant talk from all parties about the rising costs and the measures to control them, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff stepped in to try and make it clear that there are definitive plans in place to make F1 engines cheaper for customer teams than they ever have been. The engine development costs big money, and the engine departments of all the current suppliers are loss-making entities, which shouldn't be the case, so we're trying to contain that. On the other side, we have found an agreement with the FIA to reduce the prices to all engine customers over the next years to levels that are the lowest ever in F1. If you get this kind of engine at prices like 12 to 14 million, which is what we're trying to achieve, I have no understanding for somebody that claims the engines are too expensive. It's 5% of the big team's overall costs, and for the smaller teams it's between 8 to 10%. Is that acceptable for a sport that's called motorsport? Mick Schumacher to drive Dad's car. Mick Schumacher is the 18-year-old son of 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher and is currently racing his rookie year in Formula 3, where he has already earned his first podium finish earlier in the season. But at this weekend's Grand Prix in Spa, Mick will be stepping into one of his dad's former race cars to commemorate his father's first race win 25 years ago at the very same track. Mick will be stepping into the Benetton B194 for a demonstration run, which was the car that helped Michael Schumacher secure his very first world championship in 1994. To further commemorate the anniversary, Michael Schumacher's very own private collection featuring many of his race cars, including his early go-karts right through to his last Mercedes, as well as trophies and other mementos, will be exhibited over the weekend. Is Alonso the best in the world? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you liked this video, feel free to subscribe and check out my other videos for all the latest in the world of Formula 1.